Hi, I'm Neal Walters from Canon Collective. We run various photography workshops throughout Australia, and today I'm here to teach you about setting your camera up for video mode. The first thing we're going to do to go into video mode is look for our little video icon, which on the 5D is a little red icon near the start menu. On some cameras, it can be on the top left-hand dial also. So we flick the switch to go into video mode, and you'll see a big screen change and it'll come into live view. When shooting in video mode, it's important to keep everything in manual. You want to have complete control over all of your video settings, and as you'll see down the line, the more control you have over it, the better your video results will be. Now that we've gone into video mode, we can click our menu button and go to the fourth red menu, which will bring up our movie recording quality section. Now this is where you're setting up all of your video features. Now what this means is the file type that you'll be shooting in. What I would recommend to be shooting in is MOV. Now what MOV will give you is access to 4K and all the full HD settings within your camera. MP4 mode won't give you a 4K option, but MP4 is generally better to use if you're just shooting some basic video and not wanting to worry about any of the editing process afterwards. But today, we'll look more into the MOV option. Next up, we have the movie recording size. This is where you'll be able to swap between 4K and full HD videos. In this video, we won't dive into too much about what 4K is, but we have another video that you can click a link through to. Our options here are 4K, FHD, which is full HD, and there's two of those options. There's for editing and standard. So if you're just shooting again, you're just wanting a video that goes out of camera and ready to go into social media or wherever you'd like to put it, you'd use the IPB mode. If not, and you want to take on a bit of editing process, we'll go for all I, and it says for editing next to that. Today, we're going to go for the full HD, 50 frames per second, all I mode. On the 5D4, you have the 24 frames per second option, which is for more filmmaking kind of modes to give it that old school film kind of look. And we also have on the 5D4, the high frame rate option. Now I'm someone that loves shooting in slow motion, so what you have here is the option to shoot in 100 frames per second. It is really important to remember that when you do shoot at 100 frames per second, your camera won't do any internal audio. So if you wanted to record any audio for that, you'd need an external recorder. When you'll need to go into the movie server AF menu will be if you're not using an external mic. So if you have just internal audio, I'd recommend turning it to disable. What this will do is make sure that your lens doesn't make too much noise hunting for focus. We also have our AF method. Now what this stands for again is autofocus method. It's different to video as it is photo, and let's have a look at the options. We have facial tracking as our first option. So this will help find your subject and hold it for you. Our other two options are Flexi Zone AF and Flexi Zone AF and a little box next to it. And what that little box means is like a spot focusing kind of section. Both of those, your camera is going to look for things for you. I wouldn't recommend this too much with a lot of video if you're trying to pick out a certain point, but if you're doing like a landscape video or something like that, both those options are great. Staying in our menu settings, we go to the third red menu. What you'll find at the top is picture style. Now picture style is extremely important with video. In photography, you can generally use a picture style and you can change it later on because of a raw setting. But with video, it's really important to get this right in camera. Now where you can customize these options is you'll see that it says info button detail set. So if you press the info button up the top left, you'll see that it brings up a totally new menu where you can play around and customize the setting to work for what you'd like to do. The settings I use within that faithful setting is I take the sharpness all the way out, the contrast all the way out, and then I turn my saturation down by just 1 point. What this will give you is a flatter image, more like a raw photography file that you can edit later on. If, for example, you didn't want to go into the editing world, I'd suggest using either the standard, portrait or landscape video setting. Obviously portrait we'll use if you're doing more video with people, and landscape in a landscape environment. That'll allow you to process your video just straight out of camera. The last thing to look into in our settings before we start shooting is our white balance. White balance is extremely important with video. And again, unlike photography where you can shoot raw and just change things later on, it's always better to get it in camera with video. Once we go into our white balance menu, you'll see all the way on the right, there's a little symbol that says K, which stands for Kelvin. And this is where you can change your Kelvin setting to exactly which way you'd like to go. Once you've selected that customized Kelvin setting, you'll see that you're able to select your custom white balance by the top dial. You'll see that number changes between 10,000 and it'll go all the way down to 2,500. Now the best custom settings for daytime would be 5,500 Kelvin, and at nighttime you're looking at about 3,200. 3,200 will give you a bit more of a blue color, which works better at night, and a warmer tone would be about 5,500. One of the most important things to remember while shooting video on a DSLR is your shutter speed needs to be double your frame rate. This will allow for nice smooth cinematic motion, and you also won't get any light flicker in your videos. So today I have my camera set to 50 frames per second. And what that allows is a little bit of slow motion later on in the editing process. So my shutter speed needs to be dialed in at 100. From there, we only have two more settings to play with, which is our aperture and our ISO. Now, our aperture is how much of our shot is in focus. So if we use a low aperture of 2.8, whatever your subject is, that's all that's going to be in focus, so you get a nice blurry background. If we move all the way up to f22, that's going to allow everything to be in focus, which is used for more landscapes or even just a big group of people where you'd like everybody in focus. So ISO is where we're going to control the sensitivity of what your camera is doing with the natural light it's given. The higher your ISO, the brighter your video is going to be. What you also don't want to do with ISO is to have too high of a number, because the higher that number goes, the grainier and less detailed your video is going to be. So ideally, we want to always maintain a low ISO. After we have all of those settings dialed in and ready to go, the next step is to press Start Stop, or you'll have a red record button, and then you'll be shooting video. So they were some of the basics about how to shoot video on your DSLR. To find out more, head to our website at canon.com.au.